Today we are going to discuss nationality. What is meant by nationality? What is the importance of nationality? Why nationality is required? There are certain modes of acquisition and loss of nationality. One is by birth, one is by naturalization, then by presumption of nationality, by subjugation and by cession. These are the acquisition of nationality. Loss of nationality, one is by release, by living abroad for a long time, cession, renunciation and substitution. Now we'll go with what is the meaning of nationality. Nationality means it is a legal bondage of an individual with a given state. Means to which state he is concerned, thereby that is creating certain rights and duties mutually between the individual as well as the concerned state. For example, that is the state has to protect its national and his properties within that territory. Again, there is a obligations and rights on the individual. The individual has to protect his own nation in times of, that is, emergency or war. Like this, it is a legal bondage which unites a person with a given state, thereby creating certain mutual obligations between one and another. Those are binding on each other. Now we'll go with, according to Fenwick, he says that nationality means it is the bond which unites a person to a given state. That state constitutes membership in the particular state, and thereby the state gives him a claim to the protection of that state and subjects him to the obligation created by the laws of that state. According to Fenwick, he says that nationality is nothing but it is a bond, that bondage which unites the individual as well as to which state he concerned, and thereby it creates certain membership of that state and gives claim to that individual to protect the nation, as well as, that is, it also creates certain obligations by the laws to that the individual is bound to follow that. That is called as loyalty to his own nation. Again, International Court of Justice, in a famous case, Nottebohm, it is also said that it is a nationality means it is a legal bond between an individual as well as the state, and the basis of this nationality is a social fact of attachment and genuine connection between the state as well as the individual, sentiment with regard to that state, and the existence of reciprocal rights and duties between individual as well as the state. Otherwise, what is ICJ, International Court of Justice, said that it's a genuine link of that individual with regard to the particular state. That is, the individual is bound by that state, by the sentiment or by the attachment to that state, and social fact, that is how he is carrying his own business, or he is concerned with that his family or with his relatives, how he is attached to that state. These are all will be considered as a nationality. For example, how we are saying that it is my home, it is my country and my belongings, like that international also, that is, nationality means it is the legal bondage which is attached to a state on certain social facts. Then we will go with the facts of those cases. We will detailed case will be studied in Nottebohm's case and under naturalization. Now, what is the importance of this nationality. Here, that is, the state has conferred certain rights on an individual either directly or indirectly. The state which has conferred certain rights and duties on the individual is more concerned towards that individual than any other state, because it is the existence of genuine link, that is the state and the individual, that is a tie which is tied with that. There is a legal bondage which is tied with that, and for that the state assumes the protection against the individual, and it can be with regard to any other state. Now, that is the nationality is important from the point of, that is the protection of the diplomatic rights. Without recognizing nationality or to which state he is belong, that is diplomatic rights cannot be protected, because diplomat is one who represents his own state in the receiving state. For that, that is for each state in international law is a sovereign state and equal. For that, it is nationality is important. Secondly, that is the state responsibility arises through nationality only. Whenever a state that is fails to take any measures against the individual, the injury caused to the alien, either by its own officials or by individuals or by mob violence, then the state responsibility arises under international law. The state which causes injury to the another state, the state got injury, can claim it is compensation on the basis of, that is state responsibility. For that, nationality is required. The third point is that that is generally a state cannot refuse to take its own national to its own state. For example, now what we are observing, that is the migrants, either in the form of students who are studying in abroad, or the laborers who are working somewhere anywhere in the world, or maybe that is the migrants who are gone for abroad or for any places. Those persons will be considered as their own will, and whenever they return back to their home state, that is what is called as, that recognizes nationality. That is the bondage which the peoples who are having to that particular state as their own state or their own feelings. In that way, that is nationality is important in international law. Then that is a nationality of a person, particular person, that is the particular state can compel the person or an individual to serve in the military services during emergency or war. That is the obligation which an individual has to its own state, or what is called as that is the individual who is having the obligation or duty to serve in the military services, which cannot be compelled to the alien. In that way, that is the individual is loyal to his own state, thereby that is the relationship is binding between the individual as well as the state. Then that is during emergency or in war, that is the enemy character is determined on the basis of nationality, because in international law, every ship or aircraft has to fly by displaying their own flag of the state. In that way, that is the state can determine the enemy character during the war, and also the state can also exercise jurisdiction on its individuals and property within its territory. That is the competence of the state which is attached over its individuals. In that way, that is nationality is required. Otherwise, the word nationality, in that that is the shadow will follow the individual from the cradle to the grave, wherever he goes during his lifetime. That is nationality that is follows like a shadow. In that way, nationality is an important fact in international law. Now we'll go with What are the modes of acquisition of nationality? Now we understood that what is nationality. Nationality is nothing but it is the sentiment or the attachment which one who is attached to that particular state, and that particular state is having certain rights and duties mutually with individual as well as it is the India state. Now we'll go with modes of acquisition. Under that there are 5 kinds of acquisition of nationality. A person can acquire nationality by 5 ways. One is by birth. First, by birth. That is, a person can get nationality or acquire nationality where he is born. To which place he is born. One. That word, that is what is called as citizenship in municipal laws. But in national here, citizenship is nothing but it is the place of domicile. But in nationality, it is that the person who is belong to the nation. In that way, that is the birthplace will be determined as the nationality of that person. Second one, otherwise, that is at the time of his birth, to which state his parents are belong, the person, the individual gets the nationality of that parents' place at the time of birth. The second thing, that is what is called as by birth. Second one, by naturalization. By naturalization means whenever a person staying in long time or residing in a long time in any abroad or any place, there he acquires, it is the naturalization or what is called as nationality of that particular state. In this case, we'll go with, that is an important case in this nationality, what is called as Nottebohm's case. In this Nottebohm case, facts are these like this. Nottebohm, who was born in Germany in 1881, he went to Guatemala, it is a USA, in 1905. He carried business there, banking, plantation and other commerce services. Even after he went to Guatemala, his nationality is continued with the German, and that is Nottebohm. He is to come to his Germany, and he has having the relationship with German. In 1931, Nottebohm visited Liechtenstein, where his brother was residing. In 1938, he applied for he made a submission for application of as a national of that Liechtenstein. He applied for an application and for what is called as naturalization as a citizen of that Liechtenstein. In 1939, that is the state of Liechtenstein granted him his nationality. From there, 1939 onwards, he was continuing with the nationality of Liechtenstein. In the beginning of 1940, he went to Guatemala. At that time, there was Second World War was going on. Then he went to Guatemala on the passport of Liechtenstein, and there he in Guatemala he registered in the and enrolled as an alien in the register, because he belonged to Liechtenstein. It is a national. For that, he enrolled his name in Guatemala as a alien. That is, for that, as a result of that, that is because that was the enemy country. For that, in Second World War, he was arrested and he was banished to USA, and he was there up to 1945. He arrested Guatemala by authority, and he was handed over to the armed forces of that is US Guatemala. Then after 1946, again he went back to Liechtenstein. And after that there were several proceedings were filed against this Nottebohm. In order to prevent those cases, he want to go for Guatemala, but he was not allowed in Guatemala because he was an alien. For that, again he returned back to Liechtenstein. At that time, that is the state of Liechtenstein filed a suit against Guatemala because because he is a national of Liechtenstein. For this, this matter came before ICJ. In the preliminary, ICJ objected on the contention that the Guatemala said that it has no jurisdiction to try the case. But in second phase, that is the ICJ held that this Guatemala has the claim against against Nottebohm and not the Liechtenstein, because it was all that is considered from the facts of that case, because Nottebohm was stayed in Guatemala for about 34 years, and even when he went to Liechtenstein now to reside with his brother, at that time he has no intention to transfer his business from Guatemala to Liechtenstein, and also he has no intention to reside permanently in Liechtenstein. Again after that he came back to Liechtenstein, and again when he was terminated from Guatemala, then again he was internship in USA. Again he went back to Guatemala, but Guatemala was not allowed. In all these facts, the court found that he has no intention to permanently to stay or to permanently to reside in Liechtenstein, but his all this that is business and properties which were situated in Guatemala. For that, it is the Guatemala has that is the state which is having a genuine link between Nottebohm and it is Guatemala, and it is not with a genuine link with the Liechtenstein state, because for that Guatemala has an obligation to protect Nottebohm as well as Nottebohm's property. For that, what is called as it is the effective theory, or what is called as natural and genuine link, which is attached to the state. And that principle, it was said that is the state which is having more attachment, that state is having the legal bondage in order to protect the individual as well as his property. That is what is called as by naturalization. By staying in abroad for a long time, the person gets or acquires the nationality of that state. Third one, by resumption. Resumption means here that is a person that is he left his country on certain grounds where he was born. He left the country as a temporarily, and again when he came back to that state, after fulfilling certain conditions, he acquires the nationality of that state, what is called as resumption. For example, if a person went back to his own country or another country for getting employment or some other purposes, if the person wants to continue with the same nation, then after fulfilling certain conditions, he will become the national of that state. Next one is by subjugation. Subjugation means whenever a state conquered another state, either by voluntary submission or maybe by compulsion, that is a national of that conquered state gets the nationality of that conquered state. It is called as subjugation. By cession. Cession means by merging with another state, that is by merging by one state into another state. That is the state which merged, the nationals of that state which gets the nationality of that state. This is what is called as modes of acquisition of nationality. But here usually the students what they are that is getting confusion here. There's a modes of acquisition and loss of territory and nationality, but here it is entirely with regarding to nationality. But in the what is in the previous while we are studying that loss of territory, that is entirely different. That's only with regarding to territory, but here it is the nationality. Next we'll go with what is called as the modes of loss of nationality. First one is by release. By release means whenever a state releases an individual on certain grounds, the person loses the nationality of that state, either by crime or by treason or in any way. If the state, once it is released that person from its territory, then that individual loses his nationality. He cannot file anything in that state, or he cannot enjoy that state's privileges. Then by living abroad, if a person lives abroad for more than period, for example, in case of Natibam's case, that is, Natibam was lived in Liechtenstein for more than 5 years. In that on that circumstance, on that ground, a person gets nationality of that state. What's called as by living abroad long time, the person loses the nationality. If he when he went to another country and one country's nationality will be lost. Cession. Under cession also, when one state is merged with another state, that is the merged state, the nationals of that state gets the citizenship and they loses that is previous state's nationality. By renunciation. Renunciation means that is a nationality is lies on an individual by choosing which state he want to become national. That is a renunciation. It is a choice of the person. He can choose one state and he can reject another state's relationship. Last one is substitution. Substitution means when an individual gets the nationality of one state and another state will substitute nationality. One state provides substitution from one national to another national. What is meant by international treaties? In the last class, that is in sources of international law, we already know that is treaties are one of the sources of international law. It is the main source and most important source of modern international law because of its quickness or speediness. It can be adopted for the changing times, and also this treaty is acting as a legislation in the municipal law. For that, it gained more importance in modern international law. Now, what is treaty? Treaty is nothing but is an agreement between the states. Whenever they enter into relationship, the terms and conditions of that treaty are binding on the parties. In that way, international treaties means here also, that is Oppenheim says that international treaties are the agreements of contractual character between states or organization of states which create certain legal rights and duties among the parties. According to Oppenheim, he says that it is international treaties are nothing but the agreements between the states or the international organization of states, that is a group of states. Whenever they enter into agreement, that agreement either may be a bilateral agreement or maybe multilateral agreement. This agreement is entered between the states, thereby creating certain rights and duties among the states, and that provisions are binding on each other. According to Schwarzenberger, he says that treaty is an agreement between the subjects of international law, and it creates certain rights and duties in international law. Schwarzenberger says that international law is nothing but the treaty agreement. It is the contractual obligations that are entered between the states. And also, it is the agreement between subjects of international law. Subjects of international law, again we are also already that is discussed in the previous chapter on subject of international law. In that, what we already said that is states are the subject of international law because they are having certain rights and duties, and also that is international law is traditionally dealing with the states relationship only. Again, one more theory said that it is not the states only, but the individuals are also having certain rights and duties, and certain international treaties also recognized the individual rights and duties under international law, and also that is like international organization, as already what we have already discussed in the reparation for injuries in the services of suffered in the services of United Nations, like that that is international organizations or international institutions are also having certain rights and duties under international law. For that that is Schwarzenberger is in right to say that is in a trade is an agreement between subjects of international law, whereby they created certain rights and duties in international law. That is whenever they enter into agreement, that is what are the treaty agreements provisions which are agreed between the states, those are governed by international law. Then according to Article 2 subclass 1 of Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969, it defines that is a treaty as an agreement, is an international agreement which is concluded between states in written form and governed by international law. According to Article 2 subclass 1 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, it's saying that it is an international agreement, is an agreement between states, and or it was concluded between the states, and thereby that is that agreement is in the form of writing, and that agreement is governed by international law. It is the convention under Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969. That is the definition according to what is the international treaties. In all these definitions, what we are, that is concluding that international treaty is nothing but an agreement or contractual obligation which is entered between the states. Those treaty agreements are governed by international law. It is already known that one of the that is treaty is one of the sources of international law, and which is gaining more importance in modern international law. Again, you already know that these treaties either may be lawmaking treaties or may be treaty contracts. Lawmaking treaties are those nothing but those treaties which are agreed or entered by a large number of states, whereby they created that is multilateral or bilateral treaties. Next, we go with what is called as formation of treaties. How the treaties will be formed in international law. There are certain requirements to fulfill treaties under international law. Otherwise, what is called as various steps which are involved in the formation of treaties. One is accretion of instruments between the parties. That is a representation by the state. Then second one is negotiation. Negotiation which is entered between the states. Signature. The third step is the signature. Once the treaty is agreed, or once the negotiation which is entered between the states, then the representative can make the signature. Fourth one is ratification. It is ratified by number of states. Accession and adhesion. either the state can immediately can give the consent to the treaty, or it can that is reserve later to give the consent. Entry into force, that is the treaty will come into entry immediate after that consent, or it may later stage. Then registration and publication. That treaty must be registered under Article 1 or 2 of the Charter of United Nations, and publication is an essential element in formation of treaties. Now we'll go with one by one. Accretion of instruments, or what is called as accretion of the state parties. Accretion of persons on behalf of the contracting parties. Here means whenever a state representative represents in another country, thereby certain instruments will be exchanged between the two countries. For example, with regarding to that is COVID-19, recently means in the past months, that is the Indian government has entered into treaty contract with other states like UK, USA, Brazil and Ceylon and other countries with regarding to supply of that is hydrochloroquine and PPT kits. Like that, that is the whenever a representative represents his own state in the receiving state, they will exchange certain instruments on behalf of the contracting parties. Second one, negotiation. Negotiation is the second step in the formation of treaties. Negotiation means that is the two states which enter into agreement. They will negotiate, they will bargain with certain that is provisions of the treaties. That is the negotiation. Third one, that is when negotiation is agreed by the state parties. The third step is the signature to that treaty agreement. The fourth step is the ratification. Ratification is that is after signature of the treaty by the representative, that treaty either may be accepted by the state or may not accept that treaty agreement. What is called as ratification means here the head of the state or the state government, by confirming the treaty which is made by the signature by the representative, if it ratifies or if it gives consent or approval to that treaty will come into existence. Otherwise it will not come into existence. What is called as ratification. Otherwise, that is a number of states may not give consent immediate to the treaty, but later by giving up that is approval for later times, they can ratify and they can give the consent. What is called as ratification. Accession and adhesion. Accession means here that is the state which is it is not signed at the time of entering into a treaty agreement. That state may accept later time. What is called as it is accession. Accession to the treaty. Adhesion. Adhesion is also that a state becomes a law, that is a treaty becomes law only after it has been ratified by the prescribed number of states. The states may accept or adhere to the treaty agreement after ratification. That is what is called as adhesion, because there is no obligation on the state to give consent by going the process of that is negotiation, signature or ratification. It may or it may not agree that treaty. For that, it can reserve that treaty agreements, and later it can give the consent for that treaty. What is called as adhesion. Accession and adhesion. Next one is entry into force. That is, the treaty can come into force immediately or later, but it depends upon the provisions of the treaty agreement. Then that is it can come into into existence on the same day when it was signed, or it may come later days. Then last one is registration and publication under Article 2 of the Vienna Convention. Article 2 of the Charter of United Nations. United Nations, that is a treaty can come into force, and that treaty must be registered under Article 1 or 2 of the Charter of United Nations, and publication is essential under this treaty formation. This is what is called as formation of treaty, or that is several steps which are involved in the formation of treaties. Next one is the interpretation of treaties. How the treaties are interpreted. What is interpretation? Again, we'll come to the point. That is, what is interpretation? Whenever a treaty agreement, if it is not that is what is called as plain meaning, or if there is any ambiguous or uncertain meaning, or the words of the phrase or the phrases of the treaty, if it is ambiguity or uncertain or gives anomalous meaning, in such circumstances, that is the treaties are to be given meaning in their ordinary meaning, and that is subject to certain procedure of interpretation. First one is that is what is called as grammatical interpretation. Grammatical interpretation means here that is whenever the words of the statute or the phrases of the statute are that is ambiguous or vague, in such circumstances, that is the statutes are to be given meaning in their ordinary and natural meaning only. That is what is called as grammatical meaning or grammatical interpretation. One. Second one, object and that is consistency of the treaty. That is while interpreting, what is called as explaining the meaning of treaties. That is, while interpreting the treaties, that is the treaties ought to be taken into consideration. What is the meaning of the treaties according to the intent of the legislator, or what is the meaning of that word in that particular context ought to be taken into consideration. What is called as object and or what is the spirit of the statutes are to be considering facts. Object and consistency. Third point is that treaty must be interpreted in a reasonable and that is manner. Reasonable. In that reasonable means that is the statute is to be interpreted in a according to the meaning of the legislature. What is the meaning of the legislature? In true meaning of the legislature, that should be taken to consideration, and not according to the whims and fancies of that legislator. It is to be taken to consideration. Next one is the fourth one, recourse to extrinsic material. Extrinsic material means here, according to Article of the Vienna Convention 1969, interpretation ought to, that is statute of ought to be interpreted in good faith according to the ordinary meaning of the statute and the term and the terminology as well as the context of the statute, and the purpose is to be taken into consideration, and also that is a preamble, schedule, punctuation, others are also to be taken into consideration as what is called as statute to be as a whole, and it is not to be interpreted under only one context. It is to be taken into consideration the whole statute as a meaning. Then the prime concern is to be taken to the text of the statute that represent the authentic expression of the legislator, or that is the will of the parties. For what purpose that is the parties are entering into contract. That is the main factor taken into consideration by the interpreter. Then lastly, termination of treaties. How the treaties are terminated. The treaties are to be terminated in two ways. One is by act of parties. Second one is by operation of law. By act of parties, it is a that is the provisions of the treaties are depend upon the parties. If the parties agrees by peaceful manner and they can complete that they can put an end to the treaty with their own voluntary agreement by act of parties. Second one is by operation of law. By operation of law means here that is either by extinction of the one of the parties to the treaty. If one party that is makes put an end to the treaty agreement, that is it is not going to continue with the treaty, that treaty agreement will be disappeared. On that ground, one of the ground, the treaties can be terminated. Second, outbreak of war. If there is any war that is commences between the states, on that ground, that is a one ground on which the treaty agreements comes to an end. Third one is that is a material breach of contract. That is a bilateral treaty agreement. Material breach. Any conditions which are agreed between the parties, if that treaty agreement is contrary or if that is the agreement, the provisions are not accepted to any one of the party, then that treaty comes to an end. Next, impossibility of performance. That is, if the parties are not possible to perform that contract, that is one of the ground which gives rise to the termination of that is contract. Next one is rebus stantibus. Rebus sic stantibus is a one norm which is opposite to the pacta sunt servanda. Means whenever there is a parental norm, if it is conflict with the new emerged treaty agreement, in such circumstances the new treaty agreement will terminate because of the conflicting with the peremptory norm or the basic norm. This is one of the ground for avoidance of the treaty. Then what is called as jus cogens. Last one is jus cogens. Jus cogens also here it is also saying that that is whenever there is a jus cogens is nothing but it is a peremptory norm or a basic norm to change the basic norms of the international law. Whenever there is any that is conflict between the existing norms as well as the new emerged provisions of the treaty, in such circumstances that is the unless until that is the new norm which is exactly with the peremptory norm, the new norm will becomes void and terminate. This is what is called as jus cogens. In that way the treaties will come into end. Any doubt? If there is doubt with regarding to that, we'll see and we'll clarify that any doubt. But what you are saying that is whether there is any obligation on the treaties to ratify the treaty. For that, here in international it is saying that there is no obligation on the states to ratify the treaties which are agreed, because if the state parties when they enter into agreement and when they are represented by the state governments, if the treaty agreement is not accepted to the state, then the state either it can give the approval or consent to the treaty, or it may not give the consent, but there is no obligation on the state, otherwise the head of the state, to confirm the treaty agreement which is already signed by its representative.